I'm Gary, and this is Coasting with Culture, which is all about combining theme park visits and riding roller coasters with various cultural experiences around the world. After kicking off Gerbilsburgh weekend with a visit to Waldameer for some rides on the excellent Ravine Flyer 2, and heading into downtown Pittsburgh to enjoy a very scenic baseball game at PNC Park, the time has come to join the Buzz Bars for the ladies-led main event at Kennywood, giving a chance to enjoy several of their coasters, a picnic lunch, and a behind-the-scenes tour. As someone who hadn't been to Kennywood since 2008, I was really looking forward to getting a chance to revisit the park, and joining this Buzz Bars event was a great excuse to do so.
She heard you. Okay, good.
Yeah. Hi! It's Gerbilsburgh, bitches.
Regular visitors who arrived early would likely see more people than they would expect on normal days, as we'd have morning exclusive ride time. And while I haven't been to many enthusiast events outside of Buzz Bars lately, it certainly was more balanced in terms of the male-female ratio than what I've experienced and seen in the past. So it was really cool to see the club accomplish what it was hoping for. But they didn't all just come to stand around outside of the park. Everyone came to enjoy it. And so we made our way inside and over to the first coaster of the day. Before riding, there was a group photo with all the gals together before leading the way to the ride.
And like the day in which the Titanic sank, it was women and children first, except for this child. Unfortunately,
I have a child!
As a ladies-led event, they would take over the first ride of the day on Phantom's Revenge, a coaster that's found itself nicely inside of my top 20, and the top coaster from Morgan Manufacturing that fully embraces the ravine it utilizes as part of its layout. I was worried that this ride might have a similar fall from grace that Helix did, with nearly twice as much time since my last ride, but it was still running incredibly well. After a few laps on that monster, we also had time for riding the classic wooden coaster Thunderbolt, which is the fastest and most aggressive of the park's wooden coasters. It might not quite live up to others I've ridden since the last time I was here, but I love how its track interacts with that of Phantom down in the ravine, and it's a coaster I'd gladly ride over and over, just as we did for the last bit of our ERT. There was one bit of disappointment with our visit to Kennywood, and that was the closure of Steel Curtain because of a more extensive maintenance project to be done over the rest of the season, with plans to reopen the following year. So for now, it'll have to stay on my coasters to ride list. But every other coaster in the park was open, and so a bunch of Buzz Bars went shameless with their riding of Lil Phantom for that coveted +1. After that, we made our way to Racer, which is probably the tamest of the three wooden coasters here, since it doesn't have the speed and aggressiveness that Thunderbolt has, and there's something that really stands out about their third wooden coaster. But the racing aspect of this one can be a good bit of fun, and being one of the only two operating Mobius wooden coasters left in the world makes it an incredibly rare coaster to ride. While several of us made our way over to the picnic pavilion for lunch, they weren't quite ready for us yet, so we went ahead and grabbed a ride on my personal favorite wooden coaster of Kennywood, the Jackrabbit. As you roll out of the station and into the first couple drops, you don't really think much of it, save for the neat way that it rides the terrain of the park, similar to Phantom's Revenge and Thunderbolt. But with its primary lift hill nearly halfway through the course, what follows is one of the best airtime moments on an old wooden coaster, courtesy of the Double Dip. I might rate the third drop of the classic coaster back home in Washington higher, but this is still a great element to experience. After a little bit of a wait, lunch was ready. And while this was more of a typical amusement park offering of hot dogs and chicken tenders with chips, mac and cheese, and assorted fruits, it was greatly appreciated to help fuel up as there was still a solid 9 hours before the park would close for the day. Originally, Kenny Kangaroo was slated to make an appearance, but they brought the Kennywood Arrow for a visit instead, which sort of felt like they told you were gonna meet Michael Jordan, but instead brought out Tony Kukoc. All kidding aside, it was a neat touch for this event having a park mascot stop by, and we had another neat experience coming up later. Some folks stuck around for a Q&A session with one of the park managers, while several of us made our way over to the other coaster that had been added to the park since my last visit, and that was Skyrocket, the prototype of more recent coasters from Premier that led to the very common Skyrocket 2 model with its 2-loop layout. Unlike those though, this coaster has a custom layout, and I have to say I was not fully prepared for the airtime coming from the first big hill, as we sat in the back of the car, and it sort of flings you over the top, and there were a couple of smaller pops later on. Definitely a fun ride, and it makes me hope that Premier gets to make more custom versions of these, hopefully with some better trains than the ones that have been built more recently. A bit later, we all gathered back at the picnic pavilion as a member of the park's management team led us on a quick backstage tour to share with us where some of their maintenance work goes on. Although they unfortunately didn't allow us to take pictures or video during most of the tour, with the exception of a fun photo moment with the steel curtain lead car to go along with its football theme tied to the local Pittsburgh Steelers. As we enjoyed a bit more time, we took the opportunity to ride the quirky classic flat ride Kangaroo, which will certainly have you bouncing and giggling with joy. We also took a lap to check out the refreshed Old Mill, the classic boat dark ride that has been a part of the park for many years. I had only experienced it as Garfield's Nightmare when they gave it an overlay featuring the popular cartoon Cat and his friends, but I loved how they reimagined this classic ride while still maintaining its traditional method of operation and use of a working mill to propel the water through the course. In the early evening, many of the club's members decided to take a break from the park for a little field trip a couple miles away for some frozen treats at Page's, a family-owned ice cream shop that's been a part of Pittsburgh for over 70 years and offers a huge assortment of sundaes, milkshakes, and tons of different toppings to choose from with a variety of flavors. You could probably create a whole video covering all the different options they have here, and tasting them all would require more calories than even a superstar athlete could handle. I had one of their banana cream pie Arctic swirls, which is similar to a Blizzard from Dairy Queen, combining their vanilla ice cream with bananas and vanilla wafers. It was delicious, and I could see why so many people were willing to wait in a line like the one we did. After we all satisfied our collective sweet tooth, we made our way back to the park for a few more hours as the sun began to set. There was an emphasis on the classics when we got back, as we enjoyed a stroll through Noah's Ark, a very unique dark walkthrough that isn't quite a full-fledged funhouse, but the rocking of the boat certainly makes it feel more funhouse-esque than other dark rides and walkthrough attractions. We also took a couple spins on their old whip, which like the one at Dorney Park is just a fun old time. You can definitely get some good momentum in the turns. Getting to see the park as the lights came on brought an extra bit of magic that I hadn't experienced before, as my past visits always ended while it was still light out. And I really loved getting to enjoy a couple night rides on Phantom's Revenge, as that drop into the ravine at night helped clinch this coaster's place among the best that Pennsylvania has to offer, and reaffirmed my thoughts of it being the best thing ever made by Morgan. To end our visit, Eric, his son, and I scrambled over to Jackrabbit, and we were able to enjoy the last ride of the night. Walking out of the park, a part of me would like to explore more of it when the lights are on, but what we did get to see was still a treat after not having been here this late in the past. And we hung out a little bit outside of the park to say bye to everybody before heading back to the hotel, as it would be an early morning the next day to head home. As I've done on multiple occasions, I've booked a paid flight to get here, and then used benefit flights to get back since it wasn't as much of a time crunch for the return. The first leg was an uneventful one, where I had an aisle seat heading over to Detroit. Upon arrival, the layover was pretty short, which in the grand scheme of things was really nice, as it meant getting home in a timely manner. And just as I had to get to Detroit, I'd be seated in the aisle again for this last leg home. And with that, I was back in Seattle before it was even lunchtime. I really enjoyed having the opportunity to return to two of Pennsylvania's classic amusement parks for the first time in several years, and to enjoy some old favorites while also experiencing some new and surprising rides. It was also a wonderful added experience getting to make my first visit to the great PNC Park. I may be partial to our ballpark home in Seattle, but PNC is absolutely worthy of the praise people have given it, and I'd happily come back for another ball game in the future. But most of all, it was another great time with the Buzz Bars Coaster Club. And I'd like to take an opportunity to thank anybody who contributed footage and photos used in these vlogs, as has often been the case with many of these Buzz Bar events. I always feel that they're really helpful in telling the full story of what it was like to be there, and will always be grateful for the companionship everyone offers when they come together to enjoy each other's company and shenanigans. Another thank you goes out to the ladies who came out for this event, as I'm sure it was very rewarding for the organizers to see the turnout that it had, and hope that your experience inspires you to come and join us for future events while inviting friends to tag along as well. A very special thank you to the ladies who put this together and helped organize it, including Meg, Nicole, and especially Kelly, who unfortunately wasn't able to make it as she had gotten sick at the last minute. But the team put together an event that combined the best elements of what you can expect from the Buzz Bars with some added perks that were unique to this one. If there are future Gerbils to be held, I hope it continues the trend of growth that could be seen from the first event to the second. Finally, one last thank you goes out to MZ and Brian for letting me tag along for the ride up to Waldemere, and to Eric and his son for hanging out between the day at the park and going for a bit of a tour around Pittsburgh. I certainly enjoy getting to see you all and everyone who came out to take part in the second ever Gerbil, and look forward to more fun with the Buzz Bars crew. But before that comes, there's another international adventure to enjoy, but it starts with a bit of mystery, as I ask myself, where am I actually going? Thank you for watching this video from Coasting with Culture. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and click on the subscribe button to see future videos here on YouTube, like these ones which you may enjoy as well. Additional content can be found at coastingwithculture.com, and you can also follow Coasting with Culture on various social media channels at CoastWCulture for announcements, previews, and updates. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, take care and safe travels.